Welcome back. Today we are going to be working on the M52. We're going to be pulling the head to do the head gasket and check the head for cracks. I decided not to even mess around with the CCV because I'm like 100% sure the head gasket's cooked. So first things first, we backed it out of the shop. Last time we just put a shit ton of water in there. So we're just going to drain that out onto the ground, pop a couple of hoses off, get the radiator out of there, and then we'll go from there. Alrighty, we got the radiator out, the car is back in the shop, everything's drained, got the covers off. So I think the first thing we're gonna do is we're gonna get the throttle body off. Alright, so we got the throttle body off, we got these two 10mm bolts, and then 4 right here, takes those off, and then we got this oil dipstick. It's gonna be another 10mm bolt down there. We pop the fuel rails off. 2 more 10s right here and here, and then it had a quick release, so you just push in the plastic, pop those, and then now we just got to clean it up around here and pop all these guys. I believe these are all going to be 11s, and then there's going to be a couple of vacuum lines that catch it underneath of there. We're going to have to pull this metal bracket off as well. I'm pretty sure it's another 10mm bolt up to the bottom of that, and then the intake should be out of there. Alright, so we did have to take out those other couple of 10mm bolts so we can get that idle valve, whatever it's called, out of there. So that dropped down once we loosened those, put the bolts back. We did remove all of these intake manifold bolts. There's an electrical connector that goes straight up right here. We removed that. And then, let's see what else. I think there's still going to be one main vacuum line that comes off of this here and it goes up to the bottom of the intake, but this thing should be ready to come off. There we go. Oh, it looks like, oops, a little T-fitting there. May have went to that, and what's this? That goes to something else. Yeah, I went to something. We'll figure that out later, but for now, we're gonna take off that last vacuum line, get the intake out of the way, then we'll move over here. We'll break all of the coil packs loose, get those out, coil harness out of the way. These are all just gonna be a 10, at least a 10 will work. So we'll get all these out, get the coil packs, or coil harness out. Alrighty, we got all the coil packs out, and then I did just go ahead and pull all the valve cover hardware real quick. Pretty sure I used the 10 for all those as well. Minus the 2 that had the grounds on the ends. Those had an 8, and that little one right there, that snapped, so I'm gonna have to redo that. And a couple of those were stuck shut, but let's see how this motor is looking underneath. Also, I did go through and disconnect this harness for the coil packs so that we can leave that on there. Let's catch a nice valve cover gasket. I love that they used so much gasket maker. Oh my god, bro. What are these guys doing? What the hell? Yeah, so that's not how you're supposed to do these. Pretty sure. But now, God, it's like fucking confetti mess in here. Try and get as much of this shit out as possible. Don't ever do this, you guys. If you're gonna use gasket maker on a valve cover that has a gasket made for it, just use a little bit. I'm sure there's a couple spots where you're supposed to use it and that's it. This is a little excessive. Alrighty, so since we got the valve cover off, cleaned up a lot of RTV, next thing you're gonna do is you're gonna go down here and disconnect all 24 of those 10mm bolts. A lot of those came out in studs, but in my case, there's like 2 or 3 that the studs came and just the nuts came off. So we're gonna have to jack up the exhaust a little bit to relieve some tension, slide it off, drop it down. Or you can undo those bolts down there, take the whole manifolds out, your choice. But Next thing you're gonna do is set the motor to top dead center, get this fan out of your way, and you're gonna need these specialty tools here. This is gonna be a Vanos tool, crank pin, and then these are cam locks. I'll show you guys what to do with those in a second, but we're gonna go ahead and start breaking all these bolts loose for the Vanos assembly, and we'll be right back. All right, for the fan, you're gonna wanna just find a crescent wrench. What I like to do, usually I'll find like a 13 or whatever that size is, and I'll put a wrench on it and hold it up against that pulley. In my case, this thing was like finger loose and it's backwards thread, so tighten it to loosen it. And then you just kind of spin it till it falls off of it, just like that. Now we have all the room we need to set the motor top dead center and start taking the Vanos off. Okay, so we got the breaker bar down there with a 22mm socket so we can start cranking over the engine. However, I forgot to take spark plugs out, and it's probably smarter to do that just so you don't have compression fighting you while you turn the motor over. And then from there, we're gonna get the motor lined up top dead center with that mark, and should be good to go. All right, so we went ahead and pulled all the spark plugs out. Put a ratchet on there just because it's a little bit easier. This motor turns over super easy. And then it might be a little hard to see if we can get it to focus. You can see that timing light or line with the T lined up perfectly. Another way to check is make sure these two front lobes are facing each other. And the third way to know is these two squares on the end of the cams with the holes, those are going to be perfectly flat so we can get our cam lockers on there. So we're going to go ahead and do that. All right, so once you get the cam lockers in, they should look something like that with the little holes on the squares pointing up, so you know it's top dead center. And the next thing we went ahead and did is we took those out with a crescent wrench, popped all these 10mm, this 13. We undid this clip for the Vanos and then the oil line as well. We pushed down this chain tensioner, shoved an Allen key in there, loosened all of those guys. And then we used the little special Vanos tool, this guy here. You just kind of put it in there, you grab the gear, and you rotate that way, and then it'll actually pretty much just like shove this thing off. And then we got the Vanos assembly pulled, and I think from there, the next step is we're gonna go ahead and get this tensioner off. We're gonna break these guys loose. We're gonna zip tie this chain tight, get these sprockets off. All right, so note when you're taking this off that you probably do have at least one shim. In my case, I actually had 3 here and 1 right here on this side. But yeah, so don't forget how those went on. These are gonna be 10, these are 10s. This is like an E9 or something, but I used, what was it, like a special tooth 5/16, one of these guys, and it broke all those loose perfectly fine. We went ahead and broke this guy free, so we're just gonna remove that bolt, these 3 bolts back here, and then the tensioners out of there. All right, so if you're going to take this out, obviously you're gonna need to release the tension off of there, which would be right down here, this chain tensioner. You can see I already basically unthreaded it. Pretty sure it's a 32mm or something like that, but I just used an oversized crescent wrench, broke it free. It's super easy, and then it just, boom, twists out by hand, releases tension there. And then what I usually like to do is get some sort of bungee cord or like a zip tie or something, and then I will actually hold this chain. See if I can do this one-handed. Alrighty guys, I did have to take off this tensioner that was right in the middle. It was this bolt and this one. It was a little tight getting back there, but it just right behind there. So that guy was an E8, I believe. Yep, E8. And then got that right off of there. Just set that there for now. And then now it should be pretty easy to get that off of there. And then, like I said, strap this up and break the head bolts loose. Okay, so as you can see, just have that kind of pulled out of the way. Not super tight, doesn't have to be, But I was going to try and pull this head without having to remove the cams, because if you have the actual tool designed to pull the heads, then you can do that. In my case, I have this big ass stubby headed socket, and it does not in fact let me go all the way down. It just bites in the lifter trays. So now I'm going to remove the cam, well, the cam locks. I'm gonna be careful because I didn't put the crank pin in. As long as you don't move that down there, should be fine. I'm going to remove these cams here, and then we'll get the head bolts out of there and get this head off and see if this thing's cracked. All right, so we pulled the cams and the lifter trays with the lifters. Now we are actually ready to pull the head bolts. So you see, now we have plenty of room to get all those guys out. Obviously, you'll just take your E12, break all those loose. You'll have someone come here when you're ready to pull the head off, and you'll disattach this. You'll hold this up in the air, and then someone else will be pulling the head up, and you'll have them like reach under the head, grab the slack out of there, and reconnect it how it is. Or you can even just lay it over the side when the head's not in there. But yeah, so we're gonna crack these guys, get the head out of there, and check it out. All right, we got all the head bolts broke loose. They're not out of there, but they are loose. I forgot to unplug our cam sensor, which it goes all the way over there. And then it looks like coolant hose and a coolant hose. So we're gonna go ahead and get those off real quick, and then head should be off of here. All right, guys, so the head is off. We got a lot of like head gasket sealer or some shit that they used on this motor. I don't really know what that is, but the head is completely cooked, unfortunately. We got a hole in the valve, cracked head right there, crack in the head right there, crack in the head over here. And that's just what's visible right off the get-go. So I am going to be in the market for a new, well, a used but good M50 or M52 head. We will get one of those, and we'll get this project situated. But in the meantime, I think we're going to get all of this cleaned up, get all of it put away, clean out the coolant of the block, saran wrap that just so it's clear of bugs and debris and dirt. We'll get this car out of here, pull the yellow LS E36 in, get the motor pulled out of it and fixed, put back in, and then we'll get some good driving content in the LS drift car. So stay tuned for that one next week. Unfortunately, this one is a huge bummer, but we're not giving up just yet. We will get another head, and we will make it run.